I watched in stunned silence as my parents handed out premium season passes to Wonderland Amusement Park to all 7 grandchildren at their annual family barbecue in suburban Dallas. My 6-year-old daughter Emma bounced excitedly on her toes, waiting her turn with the patience only a child anticipating magic can muster. When my mother reached Emma, she paused, rummaged through an empty cardboard box, and announced loudly that there were no passes left. Then my father produced 2 extra passes from his jacket and ceremoniously presented them to the neighbors' children who happened to be visiting. Emma's face crumbled like a sand castle hit by an unexpected wave as my blood turned to ice. The Texas heat felt suffocating as I pulled my parents aside after the other families had filtered out of the backyard, their children clutching those golden tickets to summer fun. Emma sat quietly on the porch swing, still processing what had happened, her small fingers tracing patterns on her sundress. "What just happened out there?" I asked, keeping my voice level despite the rage building in my chest. My mother, Gloria, adjusted her pearl necklace, a nervous habit she'd had since I was a kid. "Oh, Reed, it was just an oversight. We miscounted the passes." But my father, Harold, couldn't keep his mouth shut. He never could when he thought he was in the right. "Well, son, we had some concerns about Emma's behavior last Christmas. Remember the vase incident?" The vase incident. My mind flashed back to Christmas morning 6 months ago, when Emma had been playing with her cousins in the living room. She'd accidentally knocked over a decorative piece while they were all running around playing tag. It was an accident. She'd cried harder than anyone when it broke. "Dad, she's 6 years old. She apologized 100 times. She even offered to pay for it with her piggy bank money." Gloria's face flushed pink. "That's not the point, Reed. Children need to learn that actions have consequences." Actions. I felt my voice rising. She was playing with her cousins. It was an accident. Harold stepped closer, his jaw set in that stubborn way that meant he'd already made up his mind. "An expensive accident. That vase belonged to my mother." "Then why didn't you say something at Christmas? Why wait until now to punish her?" The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Gloria fumbled with her purse, pulling out her phone when it buzzed. "Reed, honey, could you help me with this message? I can't see the screen very well in this light." I took her phone expecting to help with some simple text, but what I saw made my stomach drop. A group chat titled Family Concerns, with my 3 siblings, my parents, and names I didn't recognize immediately. The most recent message was from my brother Jake. Did it go according to plan? Was Reed's reaction manageable? My sister Sarah had responded, "Perfect execution. Emma definitely got the message. Sometimes tough love is necessary." I scrolled up, my hands shaking as I read weeks of messages planning this exact scenario. They'd discussed the amusement park exclusion like military strategists planning a campaign. My youngest brother Tyler had even suggested which neighbors to invite, so the sting would be more pronounced. "Reed." Gloria reached for her phone. "What's taking so long?" I handed it back to her, my mind reeling. "Mom, how long has this group chat been going on?" Her face went white. "What group chat?" "The one where you all planned to humiliate my daughter." Harold stepped forward. "Now see here, son. We didn't plan anything. We just wanted to make sure Emma understood that her behavior affects other people. By excluding her from a family activity while letting her watch other kids get what she was denied." My voice cracked. "Do you have any idea what that did to her?" "Sometimes the best lessons are the hardest ones," Harold said, crossing his arms. "Your generation wants to coddle children. We're trying to help you raise her right." I looked back at Emma still sitting on that swing, and something inside me shifted permanently. This wasn't about a broken vase or teaching responsibility. This was about power and control, and they'd used my little girl as their weapon of choice. "We're leaving," I said quietly. "Reed, don't be dramatic," Gloria pleaded. "Let's talk about this rationally." But there was nothing rational about what they'd done. As I walked toward Emma, I realized this was just the beginning. If they'd planned this so carefully, what else had they been planning behind my back? The next 3 days felt like living in an alternate universe where the people I'd trusted most had revealed themselves as strangers. I couldn't shake the image of that group chat, those calculated messages planning my daughter's humiliation. I needed answers, and I needed them from each person who'd participated in this conspiracy. Jake lived in a sprawling house in North Dallas, his lawyer's salary evident in every carefully chosen detail. When I showed up at his door Tuesday evening, he was still in his suit from the office, tie loosened but posture rigid. "Reed," he said, not inviting me in. "I wondered when you'd come around." "So you knew I'd figure it out?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You were always the emotional one in the family. Of course you'd overreact to a simple parenting lesson." Parenting lesson. I stepped closer. "Jake, you helped plan the deliberate exclusion of a 6-year-old child. My child." "Emma is impulsive," he said matter-of-factly, like he was presenting evidence to a jury. "She broke a valuable family heirloom and showed no real understanding of the gravity of her actions. Natural consequences teach children better than any lecture. She cried for an hour and offered to pay for the vase with her allowance money." "Crocodile tears," Jake dismissed. "Kids are manipulative, Reed. They learn early that crying gets them out of trouble." I stared at my older brother, searching for some trace of the person who used to build blanket forts with me as a kid. "When did you become so cold?" "When I became successful. When I learned that coddling people doesn't help them grow." He adjusted his cufflinks. "Emma needs structure, boundaries, consequences. You're raising her to think she's special just for existing." My next stop was Sarah's townhouse across town. As an elementary school principal, she'd always positioned herself as the family expert on child development. Her living room was filled with educational psychology books and awards from various teaching organizations. "I suppose you're making the rounds," she said, pouring herself a glass of wine without offering me one. "Jake called and said you were upset." "Upset doesn't begin to cover it, Sarah. You of all people should understand how cruel this was." She sat down in her leather armchair, every inch the professional educator. "Reed, in my 15 years as an administrator, I've seen what happens to children who never learn accountability. They become entitled adults who blame everyone else for their problems. She's 6 years old, and that's exactly when these patterns begin forming." Sarah crossed her legs, settling into lecture mode. Children need consistent messages from all adult figures in their lives. When you allow Emma to break things without real consequences, you're setting her up for failure. Real consequences. Sarah, she was devastated about that vase. She helped clean it up, apologized to everyone, and asked how she could make it right. "Surface compliance," Sarah said dismissively. "As an educator, I can tell you that children are expert manipulators. They'll say whatever they think adults want to hear." "So you decided to manipulate her instead?" Sarah's wine glass paused halfway to her lips. "We decided to teach her that actions have lasting effects. That sometimes when you break trust, you miss out on privileges." "Trust?" I felt incredulous. "What trust did she break?" She was playing with her cousins. The trust that she would be careful with valuable family items. The trust that she understands appropriate indoor behavior. I left Sarah's house feeling like I'd been talking to a textbook instead of my sister. But it was Tyler who delivered the knockout punch. My youngest brother lived in a converted garage apartment, still trying to find his direction at 28. When I arrived, he was playing video games, energy drink cans scattered around his couch. "Man, I knew you'd be pissed," he said, not pausing his game. "But honestly, it's not that big a deal." Not that big a deal. I sat down across from him, forcing him to look at me. "Tyler, Emma cried herself to sleep for 2 nights. Kids cry about everything." He shrugged. "Remember when you cried because Mom made you eat vegetables? This isn't about vegetables. This is about family loyalty. Tyler finally paused his game, turning to face me with an expression I'd never seen before. Calculating. Cold. Reed, we've been meeting about this for months. The room seemed to tilt. What? Every second Wednesday, at Mom and Dad's house. We've been discussing the Emma situation since February. The Emma situation. My voice came out as a whisper. Dude, she's out of control. The Christmas thing was just the tip of the iceberg. Tyler started counting on his fingers. She interrupts adults when they're talking. She runs around during family dinners. She asks too many questions. She touched Grandma's china cabinet without permission. Tyler, those are normal kid behaviors. Not in our family, they're not. We were raised with respect and boundaries. Emma acts like she owns every room she walks into. I thought about my daughter, how she lit up when she entered a space, how she approached the world with curiosity and joy. She's confident. She's happy. She's disruptive, Tyler corrected, and we all agreed something needed to be done before she gets worse. Who agreed? Everyone. Tyler looked uncomfortable for the first time. Well, yeah. Mom, Dad, Jake, Sarah, me, and Linda. My blood turned to ice water. Linda was part of these meetings. She's still Emma's mom, Reed. She has insights about Emma's behavior that we need to consider. Linda, my ex-wife who'd been fighting for increased custody for the past year. Linda who'd accused me of being too permissive, too indulgent. Linda who'd been systematically undermining my parenting for months. Tyler, what exactly has Linda told you about Emma's behavior at my house? He shifted uncomfortably suddenly, very interested in his controller. Just stuff. About how Emma talks back, doesn't follow rules, stays up too late. How she throws tantrums when she doesn't get her way. None of that was true. Emma was one of the most well-behaved kids I knew, partly because I'd worked hard to create a loving but structured environment for her. And you all believed Linda without talking to me. She's her mother, Reed. Why would she lie? As I drove home that night, the pieces of the puzzle started forming a picture I didn't want to see. This wasn't just about family discipline or teaching consequences. This was something much bigger, much more calculated, and much more dangerous to everything I held dear. The monthly meetings, Linda's involvement, the coordinated messaging, the deliberate humiliation at a family gathering. Someone was building a case against me and they were using my own family as weapons. Thursday morning found me sitting in the parking lot outside Dr. Maria Martinez's family therapy practice, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. Tyler's casual mention of a family therapist had haunted me all night. What kind of therapist encourages family exclusion tactics? What kind of professional recommends humiliating a child to teach her lessons? I'd called that morning claiming I wanted to schedule family therapy sessions. The receptionist, a cheerful woman named Beth, had been surprisingly accommodating. "Oh, Mr. Collins," she'd said when I gave my name. "Dr. Martinez has been expecting your call. She mentioned you might want to continue the family sessions." Continue. The word had echoed in my head for hours. Now, walking into the modern office building, I felt like I was entering enemy territory. The practice occupied the 3rd floor, all glass and chrome, with motivational posters about healthy families scattered throughout the waiting area. Beth looked up from her computer with a bright smile. "Mr. Collins, so good to finally meet you in person. Dr. Martinez speaks about your family often." "I bet she does. I managed." "Let me just grab your file." Beth continued, pulling out a manila folder thick enough to choke a horse. "I know your family has been working with Dr. Martinez for several months now. It's wonderful that you're ready to join the process." She handed me the folder absent-mindedly while answering a phone call. My heart hammered as I opened it, expecting to be caught at any moment. What I found inside made my blood run cold. Detailed session notes dating back 4 months. Comprehensive family assessments. Behavioral analyses of Emma written in clinical language that painted her as disturbed rather than spirited. and recommendation after recommendation for what Dr. Martinez called natural consequences and family boundaries. February 14th, family reports continued concerning behaviors from minor child. Recommend structured intervention approach using exclusion protocols to establish appropriate boundaries. March 8th. Father's permissive parenting style continues to enable problematic behaviors. Family unity around consistent consequences essential for child's development. April 3rd. Significant progress in family alignment. All adult figures except father now committed to intervention strategies. Recommend graduated implementation of natural consequences. But it was the final entry that made my hands shake. May 20th, family successfully implemented amusement park intervention. Child's reaction within expected parameters. Father's defensive response confirms need for continued family solidarity against enabling behaviors. They'd been planning this for months. Every family gathering, every interaction with Emma had been part of some twisted therapeutic strategy. Mr. Collins. Beth had finished her phone call. Dr. Martinez is running a few minutes behind, but she'll be right with you. I flipped through more pages, finding detailed notes about Emma's supposed behavioral problems. According to the file, she was aggressive, manipulative, attention-seeking, and showed signs of developing conduct disorder. None of it was true. The Emma described in these pages was a fictional character created from distorted observations and outright fabrications. Then I found the smoking gun attendance records. Every session listed the same participants: Harold Collins, Gloria Collins, Jake Collins, Sarah Collins, Tyler Collins, and Linda Morrison. My ex-wife, who, according to our divorce decree, was supposed to discuss any therapeutic interventions involving Emma with me first. Linda, who'd been secretly meeting with my family for months, feeding them lies about our daughter. Mr. Collins. A woman's voice made me look up. Dr. Martinez was younger than I'd expected, probably in her early 30s, with perfectly styled hair and a warm smile that didn't reach her eyes. Dr. Martinez. I stood clutching the folder. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Oh. Her smile faltered slightly. Beth said you wanted to schedule continuation sessions. Actually, I wanted to understand why you've been treating my family without my knowledge or consent. The mask slipped completely. Dr. Martinez glanced at Beth, then back at me, her eyes narrowing. Mr. Collins, your family members are adults who have every right to seek therapeutic guidance about concerning family dynamics. Concerning family dynamics, I repeated. You mean my 6-year-old daughter? I think perhaps we should discuss this privately. She gestured toward her office. I think perhaps we should discuss why you're recommending family exclusion tactics without ever meeting the child in question. Dr. Martinez's professional composure cracked. Mr. Collins, your family has expressed serious concerns about Emma's behavioral patterns and your parenting approach. My role is to provide them with tools to maintain healthy family boundaries. Healthy boundaries. I said, thinking of Emma's tear-stained face after the amusement park incident. Is that what you call deliberate humiliation? Natural consequences, she corrected. Children need to understand that their behavior affects their relationships with extended family. I flipped open the folder to a random page. According to your notes, Emma shows signs of conduct disorder. Have you ever actually observed her behavior yourself? The silence stretched too long. Mr. Collins, my therapeutic relationship is with your family members, not with Emma directly. So you're diagnosing a child you've never met based on reports from people who have a vested interest in making her look problematic. Jiaocuan. I think this conversation needs to end, Dr. Martinez said firmly. If you'd like to schedule proper family therapy sessions, you can call Beth to arrange. Dr. Martinez, I interrupted a terrible thought forming. How long have you and Linda Morrison known each other? The color drained from her face. I don't understand what you're implying. But I did understand. Finally, horribly, I understood everything. The monthly meetings hadn't started because of the Christmas vase incident. They'd started because Linda needed allies in her custody battle. She'd found Dr. Martinez convinced my family that Emma was troubled and orchestrated months of therapeutic sessions designed to build a case against my parenting. The amusement park incident wasn't about teaching Emma consequences. It was about creating documented evidence of family rejection that could be used in court. Beth, I called out walking back to the reception area. I need to see Dr. Martinez's appointment calendar for the past 6 months. Sir, I can't, Beth started. Specifically, I need to see any appointments scheduled under the name Linda Morrison that weren't group family sessions. Dr. Martinez appeared behind me. Mr. Collins, you need to leave immediately or I'll call security. But Beth was already looking at her computer screen, confusion written across her face. Dr. Martinez, there are a lot of individual appointments with Ms. Morrison. Some of them are outside normal business hours. The truth hit me like a physical blow. Linda hadn't just been manipulating my family through therapy sessions. She'd been having an affair with our supposed therapist, using their personal relationship to craft a professional case against me. Beth, I said gently, I need you to print out that appointment schedule, and I need contact information for the state licensing board for family therapists. Dr. Martinez grabbed my arm. You're making a terrible mistake. I looked at her hand on my sleeve, then back at her face. The only mistake I made was trusting that the adults in my daughter's life had her best interests at heart. As I walked out of that office with printed evidence of Linda and Dr. Martinez's deception, I realized the conspiracy against Emma and me was even bigger than I'd imagined. But for the first time since Sunday's barbecue, I wasn't feeling helpless. I was feeling dangerous. By Friday morning, I'd made a decision that would have seemed impossible just a week earlier. I was going to war against my own family, and I was going to win. Marcus Webb operated his private investigation business out of a small office above a coffee shop in downtown Dallas. Former military police, he specialized in custody cases and domestic disputes. His secretary had squeezed me in for an emergency consultation after I explained the basics of my situation. Mr. Collins, Marcus said, reviewing the folder I'd assembled overnight, this is one of the most systematic parental alienation cases I've seen in 15 years of practice. He was a compact man in his 50s with graying hair and the kind of steady presence that suggested he'd seen everything twice. His office walls were covered with certificates and commendations, along with photos of him in military dress uniform. Can you prove it? I asked. Son, you've already done half my job for me. He tapped Dr. Martinez's appointment records. A licensed therapist having an affair with one parent while providing testimony about the other parent's unfitness. That's not just unethical, it's grounds for criminal fraud charges. Marcus pulled out a yellow legal pad and started making notes. Tell me about your custody arrangement. Shared custody. Emma spends weekdays with me, weekends with Linda. We switch off holidays and vacation time. And Linda's been pushing for modification. For the past year, she claims I'm too permissive, that Emma needs more structure. Marcus nodded grimly. Classic strategy. Create problems, document problems, blame the other parent for problems. The amusement park incident was a setup, Mr. Collins. Your family members probably don't even realize they were being used as props in Linda's custody theater. What can we do? We're going to document everything. I need surveillance on Linda and Dr. Martinez to establish the nature of their relationship. I need character witness statements about Emma's actual behavior, and I need evidence of your family's conspiracy meetings. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Fair warning, this is going to get ugly before it gets better. When people realize they've been exposed, they tend to double down rather than admit they were wrong. I don't care about ugly, I said. I care about protecting my daughter. Good, because we're about to turn their entire strategy against them. The next 2 weeks felt like living in a spy movie. Marcus's team worked with military precision, documenting everything. They photographed Linda leaving Dr. Martinez's office at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday when no sessions were scheduled. They recorded audio of Linda coaching her friend Jessica on what to tell the court about Emma's concerning behavior during playdates that had never actually happened. Most damaging of all, they discovered Linda had been secretly recording Emma during custody exchanges, editing the footage to make normal childhood behaviors look pathological. "Look at this," Marcus said during our second meeting, playing a video on his laptop. "Here's the original recording Linda made last month." The video showed Emma running up to Linda's car, chattering excitedly about a school project. She was animated, happy, talking with her hands the way 6-year-olds do when they're bursting with enthusiasm. Now here's the edited version she submitted to Dr. Martinez. Marcus continued switching files. The same video, but edited to show only moments when Emma was moving quickly or gesturing emphatically with her voice edited out. Without context, it looked like footage of a hyperactive, out-of-control child. "She's been doing this for months," Marcus explained. "Creating false evidence of behavioral problems, then sharing it with your family members and Dr. Martinez to build her case." But the most devastating discovery came during week 3 of the investigation. Marcus had been monitoring the online activity of Dr. Martinez's practice when he stumbled across something that made him immediately call an emergency meeting. "Reed," he said when I arrived at his office, "we need to talk about Dr. Martinez's background." He handed me a printed report that made my stomach drop. "She's not licensed to practice family therapy in Texas." I stared at the document. "What do you mean?" "I mean, her license was revoked in California 2 years ago for having inappropriate relationships with clients. She moved to Texas and opened a practice using credentials from a fake online certification program." The room started spinning. "So, the therapy sessions, the recommendations, the clinical assessments, all completely fraudulent. Your family has been receiving treatment from someone with no legal authority to practice therapy." Marcus leaned forward. "Reed, this changes everything. We're not just looking at custody manipulation anymore. We're looking at fraud practicing medicine without a license and conspiracy to commit perjury." "What about my family? They had no idea." "They're victims too, in a way. But they're also witnesses. And when this all comes out, they're going to have to choose between continuing to support Linda's lies or admitting they were wrong about Emma." That evening, I sat in Emma's bedroom watching her sleep, her small face peaceful in the glow of her unicorn nightlight. She'd been so brave through all of this, never complaining about the family tension, never asking why her cousins got amusement park passes when she didn't. Tomorrow, Marcus would present his findings to Linda's attorney and demand an immediate halt to the custody modification proceedings. The day after that, we'd file a formal complaint against Dr. Martinez with both the state licensing board and the district attorney's office. But tonight, I just watched my daughter sleep and promised her silently that no one would ever use her as a weapon again. The war was about to begin in earnest, but for the first time in months, I believed we were going to win. Marcus had given me homework: compile a list of every adult who interacted regularly with Emma outside our family. Teachers, coaches, instructors, healthcare providers, neighbors. Anyone who could speak to her actual character versus the fictional problem child Linda and Dr. Martinez had created. "Character witnesses are everything in custody cases," Marcus had explained. "Judges want to hear from neutral third parties who have no agenda except the child's well-being." My first stop was Hillcrest Elementary, where Emma was finishing first grade. Mrs. Patterson had been teaching for 23 years and had the kind of gentle authority that made children feel safe and valued. "Mr. Collins," she said when I explained why I'd requested the meeting. "I have to say this is very concerning. Emma is one of the most delightful students I've ever taught." We sat in her classroom after hours, Emma's artwork covering the walls around us. Mrs. Patterson pulled out Emma's file, thick with examples of her work and behavioral assessments. "Look at these peer interaction reports," she said, spreading out forms across her desk. Emma consistently scores in the top percentile for kindness cooperation and leadership skills. Just last week, she organized the entire class to make get-well cards for our custodian, who was in the hospital. What about impulse control, attention issues, defiance? Mrs. Patterson looked genuinely puzzled. Emma. She's actually more mature than many children her age. She helps younger students during recess, follows directions without repetition, and shows remarkable empathy for others. She pulled out a folder of incident reports. In my 23 years of teaching, I've never had a student with fewer behavioral issues. Emma has never been sent to the office, never required disciplinary action, never even needed a stern talking to. Could you put that in writing? Mr. Collins, I'll do more than that. I'll testify in court if necessary. What someone is claiming about Emma's behavior is not only false, it's dangerous. Children's reputations matter, and Emma's is being unfairly attacked. My next stop was the soccer fields where Emma played in the Under-8 Recreational League. Coach Tommy Williams was a former college player who volunteered his time because he loved working with kids. Emma Collins. His face lit up when I mentioned her name. That kid's got the biggest heart of any player I've coached. Last Saturday, she spent half the game helping the other team's goalkeeper learn proper positioning instead of trying to score on her. We walked across the field where Emma had spent countless Saturday mornings, her ponytail bouncing as she chased after the ball with pure joy. Coach Williams, has Emma ever displayed aggressive behavior, poor sportsmanship, difficulty following rules? He laughed outright. Emma. She's the kid who brings orange slices for both teams. She helped set up cones before practice without being asked. When we had that new girl join mid-season who was too shy to participate, Emma spent 2 weeks coaxing her into the game. Any problems with authority talking back defiance? Mr. Collins, Emma's the first kid to raise her hand when I ask for volunteers to demonstrate drills. She listens better than some adults I know. What's this about? When I explained the custody situation, Tommy's expression turned serious. Sir, I work with 60 kids every season. I can spot the problematic ones from a mile away. Emma isn't just well-behaved, she's a natural leader who makes other kids better. If someone's saying otherwise, they're either lying or talking about a different child. The pattern continued everywhere I went. Beth Rodriguez, Emma's piano instructor, showed me videos of Emma performing at the local nursing home, where she'd started asking to play extra pieces because she noticed how happy the music made the elderly residents. Emma has been playing piano for 8 months, Beth explained. She practices without being reminded, shows up early for lessons, and asks thoughtful questions about music theory. Last month, she composed a simple melody and asked if she could play it for her grandmother. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, Emma's pediatrician, pulled up years of checkup records showing a healthy, well-adjusted child who cooperated during examinations and asked age-appropriate questions about health and safety. Emma's developmental milestones are all above average, Dr. Walsh noted. Her social-emotional development is particularly strong. She interacts well with my staff, shows appropriate stranger awareness without being fearful, and demonstrates strong attachment behaviors with you. Any signs of anxiety, depression, behavioral disorders? Mr. Collins, Emma is one of the most emotionally stable children I treat. Her affect is consistently positive, she communicates well, and she shows excellent coping skills for her age. But it was my neighbor Mrs. Chen who provided the most devastating evidence against Linda's conspiracy. Mrs. Chen lived 2 houses down and had witnessed the amusement park incident firsthand. When I knocked on her door Friday evening, she invited me in with obvious relief. Mr. Collins, I've been hoping you'd come talk to me. I haven't been able to sleep properly since Sunday. We sat in her kitchen while her own children played in the backyard. Mrs. Chen was a soft-spoken woman who worked as a nurse at the local hospital, and her discomfort was obvious. Your parents asked us to bring Tommy and Lisa to the barbecue specifically so they could give them the extra amusement park passes in front of Emma. The words hit me like a physical blow. They what? Your father called me Thursday before the barbecue. He said they had purchased too many passes by mistake and wondered if our children would like to have them. He specifically said it would mean a lot if we could be there when they handed them out. Mrs. Chen's hands trembled slightly as she continued. I thought it was strange, but Harold explained that they wanted to teach Emma about being grateful for family privileges. He said Emma had been taking family generosity for granted. And you believed that... I'm sorry to say I did initially. Your parents have always seemed like such loving grandparents. But when I saw Emma's face during the actual moment, Mrs. Chen's voice broke. Mr. Collins, that little girl's heart broke right in front of everyone, and your parents seemed almost pleased about it. Why didn't you speak up? I should have. I've regretted it every day since. But in the moment I assumed there was family context I didn't understand. It wasn't until later when my Tommy asked why Emma looked so sad that I realized how cruel the whole thing had been. Mrs. Chen reached across the table and touched my hand. Mr. Collins, I'll testify about what really happened if you need me to. What your family did to Emma was planned and deliberate, and it was wrong. By the end of that week, I had written statements from 8 different adults who interacted with Emma regularly. Teachers, coaches, instructors, healthcare providers, neighbors. Every single person described a kind, well-behaved, emotionally stable child who was a pleasure to be around. The contrast between their testimonies and Dr. Martinez's fabricated assessments was so stark, it read like someone was describing 2 completely different children. Marcus reviewed all the statements during our Friday meeting, nodding with satisfaction. This is devastating evidence, Reed. No judge in the world will believe Linda's claims about Emma's behavior problems when 8 neutral third parties are saying the exact opposite. What's our next move? Marcus leaned back in his chair with the expression of a man holding a royal flush. Now we call a family meeting and lay all our cards on the table. It's time for everyone to choose sides. I spent Saturday morning setting up my parents' living room like a courtroom. Marcus had suggested neutral territory, but I wanted this confrontation to happen in the same house where my family had been meeting monthly to plan my daughter's systematic humiliation. The irony felt appropriate. I'd called everyone Friday evening with the same message mandatory family meeting Sunday at 2 p.m. to discuss Emma's future. I didn't elaborate, just said it was important that everyone attend, including Linda and Dr. Martinez. Linda had tried to refuse until I mentioned that Marcus Webb would be presenting evidence that concerned her directly. She'd agreed immediately, after that her voice tight with barely controlled panic. Marcus arrived first, carrying 2 briefcases and a laptop bag. He dressed professionally in a dark suit, looking every inch the former military investigator he was. You ready for this? He asked, setting up his equipment on my father's dining room table. I've been ready since Sunday. I replied, thinking of Emma's tear-stained face. Emma was spending the weekend with my college friend David's family, safely away from whatever ugliness was about to unfold. She thought it was just a fun sleepover with her friend Chloe. She had no idea that her entire future was being decided in her grandparents' living room. My parents arrived promptly at 2, followed by Jake in his Mercedes and Sarah in her practical Honda. Tyler pulled up last looking hungover and confused about why he'd been summoned to a family meeting on a Sunday afternoon. Linda walked in precisely at 2:15 with Dr. Martinez beside her, both women wearing expressions of defensive hostility. Linda had dressed for battle in a sharp business suit and heels, while Dr. Martinez looked nervous in casual clothes. Reed, my father said, as everyone settled into chairs. What's this all about? And why did you invite outsiders to a family meeting? I looked around the room at the people who'd spent months conspiring against my daughter, then at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. This meeting is about truth, I said simply, and about the systematic campaign to destroy Emma's reputation and my parenting rights. Reed, honestly. My mother began, You're being overly dramatic. Hey, Gloria. Marcus interrupted, opening his first briefcase. I'd recommend you let me finish before you say anything else that might incriminate you further. The room went dead silent. Marcus pulled out a thick folder and set it on the coffee table. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Marcus Webb, and I'm a licensed private investigator. For the past 3 weeks, I've been documenting a conspiracy to commit custodial interference fraud and perjury. Linda's face went white. Dr. Martinez started to stand up, but Marcus gestured for her to remain seated. Dr. Martinez, let's start with you. Would you like to explain to this family why you've been providing therapeutic services without a valid license? The silence stretched like a taut wire about to snap. I have a license, Dr. Martinez said weakly. Marcus pulled out a document. This is a report from the California State Board of Psychology. Your license was revoked in August 2023 for having sexual relationships with clients. Your Texas practice is operating under fraudulent credentials from an online diploma mill. Jake leaned forward, his lawyer instincts kicking in. Are you saying Dr. Martinez isn't a real therapist? I'm saying she's a fraud who has been practicing medicine without a license for 2 years, Marcus replied. Every session you've attended, every recommendation she's made, every assessment she's written about Emma has been completely illegal. My mother's hand flew to her throat. But she helped us understand Emma's problems. Emma doesn't have problems, Gloria, Marcus said gently. Dr. Martinez and Linda Morrison have been manufacturing problems to support a custody case. He pulled out another folder. Which brings us to the affair. Dr. Martinez made a small sound like a trapped animal. Marcus set down a series of photographs showing Linda entering and leaving Dr. Martinez's office at unusual hours, the two women embracing in a parking garage, sharing intimate dinners at restaurants across town. Linda Morrison and Dr. Martinez have been romantically involved for at least 6 months, Marcus announced. Every therapeutic session you've attended has been part of an elaborate scheme to build a custody case against Reed. Tyler looked genuinely confused. Wait, so the monthly meetings weren't really therapy? They were strategy sessions, Marcus replied. Linda needed allies who would testify about Emma's behavioral problems and Reed's inadequate parenting. Dr. Martinez provided the pseudo-professional framework to make your concerns seem legitimate. Sarah's face crumpled. But Emma's behavior issues were real. We all saw them. Marcus opened his laptop and pulled up the edited videos Linda had created. You saw what Linda wanted you to see. He played the original footage of Emma being happy and animated then the edited version that made her look disturbed and hyperactive. Linda Morrison has been systematically creating false evidence of Emma's behavioral problems for months. She's recorded normal childhood behaviors, edited them to look pathological, and shared them with your fake therapist to support her custody claims. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Jake stood up abruptly. Linda, is this true? Linda's composure finally cracked. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Reed is too permissive. Emma needs structure. I was trying to help her. By lying about her, Sarah demanded. By creating consequences for her actions, Linda shot back. The Christmas vase incident was just one example of Reed failing to parent properly. Marcus pulled out Mrs. Patterson's statement and began reading aloud. Emma consistently scores in the top percentile for kindness, cooperation, and leadership skills. In 23 years of teaching, I've never had a student with fewer behavioral issues. He continued with Tommy Williams's assessment, Beth Rodriguez's observations, Dr. Walsh's medical records, and Mrs. Chen's eyewitness account of the deliberately planned amusement park humiliation. With each statement, Linda's face grew paler, and Dr. Martinez shrank deeper into her chair. 8 neutral third parties. Marcus concluded, all describing a kind, well-behaved, emotionally stable child. Not one of them has ever observed the behavioral problems you've all been convinced exist. My father, who'd been silent through the entire presentation, suddenly made a choking sound. His face had gone gray, and he was clutching his chest. Harold, my mother screamed. I immediately called 911 while Jake started CPR. The next 20 minutes were chaos as paramedics worked on my father in the living room, where we'd planned to continue our confrontation. As they loaded Harold onto a stretcher, He grabbed my hand weakly. "Reed," he whispered. "I'm sorry. I knew something felt wrong about all this. I should have trusted my instincts about Emma." The ambulance pulled away with my parents, leaving the rest of us standing in stunned silence in the disrupted living room. Linda and Dr. Martinez had used the chaos to slip away, but Marcus had already served them with legal notices earlier. Their disappearing act wouldn't help them now. "Reed," Sarah said quietly, tears streaming down her face. "We've been such fools." "Antam, yes, I agreed you have been. The question now is what you're going to do about it." 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of our new house, watching through the window as Emma played in the backyard with her cousins. Not the strained, walking on eggshells interactions we'd had before, but genuine laughter and joy as they chased each other around the swing set my father had insisted on installing himself. Harold had survived his heart episode, though the cardiologist said the stress of that awful Sunday had probably saved his life by forcing him to address underlying health issues he'd been ignoring. More importantly, the medical emergency had shocked him into confronting the emotional damage he'd participated in causing. Sometimes, he'd told me during one of our weekly coffee meetings, it takes almost losing everything to realize what really matters. The legal aftermath had been swift and decisive. Dr. Martinez lost her fraudulent practice and faced criminal charges for practicing medicine without a license. Linda's custody modification request was not only denied, but the judge had been so appalled by the evidence of manipulation that he'd reduced her custody time and ordered supervised visits until she completed legitimate family therapy. Linda had moved to Phoenix 3 months ago, claiming she needed a fresh start. Emma video called with her twice a week and seemed relieved that the tension and coaching sessions had ended. "Daddy," Emma said, running into the kitchen with grass stains on her knees and sunshine in her smile. "Grandpa Harold says he wants to take everyone to Wonderland next weekend for my birthday. Can we go?" "Of course we can go, sweetheart." She bounced on her toes with excitement. "And Cousin Jake Jr. can come too, and Aunt Sarah and Uncle Tyler. Everyone who wants to come is invited," I promised, ruffling her hair. Emma had forgiven our family with the easy grace that only children possess. She'd never asked why her grandparents had been mean to her, never demanded explanations for the months of tension and exclusion. When Harold and Gloria had sat her down to apologize, she'd simply said, "It's okay, Grandpa. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes too." Her capacity for forgiveness had shamed us all into being better people. Gloria appeared in the doorway carrying a pitcher of lemonade and wearing the relaxed smile I remembered from my childhood. "Reed, honey, your father wants to know if Emma would like to help him grill hamburgers." I think she'd love that. My mother had taken the revelation about the conspiracy harder than anyone except Harold. She'd spent weeks in genuine therapy working through the guilt of having participated in Emma's systematic exclusion. But watching her with Emma, now seeing the authentic love and pride in her eyes, I knew the healing was real. Jake had surprised me the most. My successful lawyer brother had been so appalled by the legal and ethical violations in Linda's scheme that he'd offered to represent me pro bono in all related legal matters. "I built my career on justice and truth," he'd said during one of our awkward reconciliation conversations. "What I participated in was the opposite of everything I believe in." He'd also paid for Emma's first year of piano lessons as an apology gift and had started taking genuine interest in her activities rather than viewing them as evidence of behavioral problems. Sarah had used the experience as a learning opportunity for her students, developing new protocols for her school to prevent parental manipulation and false reporting. She'd also become Emma's most enthusiastic supporter, attending every soccer game and piano recital with the fervor of someone making up for lost time. Tyler had moved out of his garage apartment and into a proper job with benefits, claiming that seeing how easily he'd been manipulated had motivated him to take better control of his life. Marcus Webb had become not just our investigator, but a family friend. He joined us for dinner once a month, and Emma always insisted on showing him her latest artwork or soccer trophies. He'd become the honorary uncle who helped her feel safe in a world where adults could be complicated and sometimes wrong. The character witnesses who'd spoken up for Emma had become our extended support network. Mrs. Patterson still sent home extra art projects for us to display. Coach Tommy had recommended Emma for an advanced soccer program. Beth Rodriguez had started giving Emma small performance opportunities that built her confidence. Dr. Walsh continued to monitor Emma's well-being with the extra attention of someone who understood how close we'd come to losing custody. Mrs. Chen had become one of our closest family friends, and our children played together several times a week. She'd also become an advocate for other families facing similar manipulation, using her experience to help parents recognize the warning signs of parental alienation. But the most important change was in Emma herself, not because she'd been broken and needed fixing, but because she was now surrounded by adults who genuinely celebrated her spirit instead of trying to crush it. She still ran into rooms with enthusiasm. She still asked endless questions about everything around her. She still approached the world with the confidence and joy that had apparently been so threatening to the conspiracy against us. The difference was that now all the adults in her life supported those qualities instead of viewing them as problems to be solved. Dorsand. Daddy. Emma said, climbing onto the kitchen counter to help me reach the high cabinet. Mrs. Patterson says I can be the class representative for the school's kindness awards next year. That's wonderful, sweetheart. What do class representatives do? We help other kids learn how to be nicer to each other, and we get to plan special activities for kids who are having hard days. I smiled, thinking about how perfectly the role fit Emma's natural empathy and leadership abilities. I think you'll be excellent at that job. Mrs. Patterson says some kids don't have nice families like I do, and that's why they sometimes act mean. She says when people hurt you, it's usually because someone hurt them first. The wisdom of my 6-year-old daughter continued to amaze me. That's very smart, Emma. So I want to help those kids feel better, like how our family feels better now. Later that evening, after Emma had fallen asleep clutching the teddy bear Harold had given her to apologize for the amusement park incident, I sat on our porch thinking about the journey we'd all taken. The experience had taught me that family loyalty isn't about blindly supporting those who share your blood. Real loyalty means protecting the innocent and vulnerable even when that puts you in conflict with people you love. Sometimes the greatest act of love is standing up to those we love when they're wrong. I'd learned that children often have the purest hearts and the greatest capacity for forgiveness, but adults have to earn the right to that forgiveness through consistent, genuine love, rather than demanding it through blood relations or authority. Most importantly, I'd learned that truth has a way of surfacing even when powerful people work together to bury it. And that one person willing to fight for what's right can overcome a conspiracy of people convinced they know what's best. Emma's grace in forgiveness had shown our entire family what real strength looked like. Not the power to control or manipulate, but the courage to love unconditionally while maintaining healthy boundaries. As I watched the stars appear over our peaceful neighborhood, I thought about all the families facing similar battles. Parents being alienated from their children by manipulation and lies. Children being used as weapons in adult conflicts. Families being torn apart by people who mistake control for love. Our story had a happy ending because we fought back with truth evidence and the support of people who genuinely cared about Emma's well-being. But how many families never get the chance to expose the lies told about them? The question that keeps me up at night is this: if someone was systematically manipulating your family against you, would you recognize the signs in time to stop them? Have you ever wondered if the family conflicts in your life might be caused by someone with their own agenda pulling strings behind the scenes? I encourage you to think carefully about the relationships in your life and trust your instincts when something feels wrong. And if you've experienced anything similar to what our family went through, please share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help another parent recognize the warning signs of parental alienation before it's too late. If this story resonated with you, please like this video to help other families find it. Subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming family manipulation and protecting the people we love. And please share this with anyone who might need to hear that it's possible to fight back against lies and win. Thank you for taking this journey with me, and I hope your families are surrounded by people who celebrate your children's spirits instead of trying to break them. Until next time, hold your loved ones close and trust your instincts when it comes to protecting them. The truth always finds a way to surface, and love always wins in the end.